Well, the situation in Gaza right now is extreme. It is catastrophic in every way that you can look at it, and one cannot justify what is taking place. And while we find, particularly around the world, global mainstream media pretty silent, or more, I would say, subdued in their reporting on the dire situation in Gaza, particularly looking at the famine, looking at the hunger that is taking place. The appeal is actually gone out to the entire world and to media in particular to give a lot more prominence to what is happening with this genocide that has been unfolding in the last 22 months. We at Salam Media, humanitarian journalism as the core of our philosophy, and what we have been promoting for a very, very long time, since inception and long before this genocide had actually unfolded, continue speaking out against it. And we've seen now in South Africa a statement from the South African National Editors Forum, the campaign for free expression and the campaign on digital ethics on civilians and journalists in Gaza. Directly going across now to SANEF Executive Director Reggy Moalusi. Reggie, good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Yes, Reggie, I've just been looking at the statement that SANEF has issued, the campaign for free expression, the campaign on digital ethics, but also highlighting this catastrophic situation in Gaza. And this statement reads, and I quote, not only because of our solidarity with journalists there, but because the survival of free expression itself is at stake.
No, absolutely, man. We need to understand that much as we are journalists and we always call on the allowance and the respect of free expression is not only limited to ourselves as media practitioners, but it's also, you know, it goes beyond. It goes to civilians. It goes to ordinary citizens. It goes to those citizens being able to express their views and say what they want to say. But what we are seeing now in Gaza at the behest of Israel is that that's now, it's not even there. It's not even there. I mean, you saw in our statement what we said. The situation is so dire that international journalists can't even get to Gaza. But more critically and more sadly is that the journalists that are in there, they are not allowed free expression. In fact, they are bombarded, they are killed, and journalists are also civilians. They are also citizens. They are also residents of Gaza. They've got the rights. So if these who live there, they see their fellow citizens not being allowed to live, not being allowed to freely express themselves, then what's the point of journalism? What's the point of us practicing what we need to practice? So the statement is solely based on that. And it's a statement, I don't know, we're releasing such statements for the umpteenth time to keep on calling for the international community to act and to speak out, instead of standing on the sidelines and criticizing South Africa's ICJ actions. So that's what we are saying. We are saying we need to speak out, and we need to speak out against, the diminishing freedom of expression and journalists being targeted, and particularly ordinary citizens.
Yes, obviously, one of the most critical issues here, Reggie, is the mere fact that international journalists, independent journalists, are not allowed in. They are actually prevented from going into Gaza. Now, what does that actually tell you? What message is this sending?
It's a simple message that's being sent out there. You are simply saying the Gaza story cannot be told. You are simply saying the Gaza's people's fears and hopes for a better life for an end to this whole thing, for the Palestinian statehood cannot be had. Because when international journalists come in there, they come in there to report. They come in there to tell that story. They come in there to tell the story through voices of ordinary people. But now, if international journalists cannot get in there, then what does that mean? It simply means, that story cannot be heard. Hence, we're saying it's unheard of that international journalists cannot get in, international journalists cannot access Gaza. So that's our whole point. That's what we say.
And also, I think what is important to understand, Reggie, and we at Salam Media have in the last year or so somehow managed to get journalists who were in Gaza, who had spent some time during this genocide, to come out. To South Africa, and these journalists have got presence now in other countries, and they were fortunate enough to actually get out and to tell their side of the story, first-hand accounts of how it impacted on them as journalists, their families, the people of Gaza as well. And we've had now two instances where we've had media people, and we've got a third instance coming through where in August, where another young journalist who spent time in Gaza, who managed to actually get out, to come out and to send this message to the world and to highlight the plight of this journalist. Now, that alone actually speaks volumes where we've now starting to see first-hand accounts. And also, I think, when you speak about a campaign on digital ethics, fortunately, we are living in a digital age where, to some extent, we are able to get some information, some news that is coming out of Gaza in terms of what is actually playing out and how journalists are affected, to the extent that even we've seen an unprecedented appeal coming out of agency France, the press, which is a respected international news agency, issuing warning that those still remaining in Gaza are even too weak from starvation to work. And this was confirmed by many journalists and by the journalists that we hosted here in South Africa.
Yeah, and absolutely, man. And I mean, I'm listening to the story being narrated by the AFP journalists, listening to the story of journalists who have gone there, who have been there. And if you also listen to other journalists who have covered that, whether you are listening to the Al Jazeera journalists and all of that, you then realize that, there's a lot going on. And with all these stories that journalists tell, the collation of those stories, and then you do an analysis to say there's still more stories to be told, and we are still not hearing more stories being told, and we still need those stories. And for us to hear those stories, we need to hear those stories through journalists. If you are going to silence journalists in whatever way across the world, then these stories won't be told. And as SANEF, we will always emphasize the point that there's no democracy, there's no better world without the existence of journalists. Journalists have to be there. Journalists have to tell these stories. And journalists have to tell stories through the ears, the voices of ordinary people. And the journalists that you are referring to, those are the stories they told you. And they're telling you those stories as Salam Media, me and you being here in Joburg. But wait until you go there and then you see for yourself what's happening on the ground. Then you realize the situation is more dire. Then you realize that we still have a whole lot of work, even after the end of this war, even the rebuilding of the whole, damaged infrastructure to say, as we want Palestine back on its feet, there's a whole lot of work that lies ahead for years to come.
Reggie, I'm going to put you on hold. I need to pay a few bills, so we want to just go for a quick air break, and we'll be back in a minute or two.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
You know, it's It's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Gaza needs your support more than ever. Homes have been shattered and families have lost everything. With your support, our teams are delivering clean water tankers, feeding the hungry, and assisting orphans who have no one left. Let us give Gaza whatever help we can. African Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
We continue our discussion this morning with SANEF Executive Director Reggy Moalusi, where SANEF, the South African National Editors Forum, has issued a statement and just focusing a lot on journalists, on their families, and how they are being placed directly in the way of harm, and not as collateral damage, as part of a campaign of collective punishment. And we in South Africa know what it's all about, and this press statement alludes to this, talking on South Africa, focusing on media freedom, free expression as well. And again, here we have a huge anomaly where the statement talks about a free press that cannot exist where journalists are starved, targeted, silenced, nor can humanity flourish where civilians are collectively punished and cut off from the world's gaze. And again, a very powerful statement saying to remain silent in the face of such conditions would be to fail the very principles we were established to defend. Reggie, now these are powerful statements, and what we've seen throughout this genocide is, however, and the statement alludes to this as well, however justified Israel might feel in its retaliation against the people of Gaza, again, when one looks at the narrative, and it's about who controls the narrative. And this is where the focus is on journalism during the this genocide that is unfolding. And we've seen two very contrasting narratives. On the one hand, you've got the global media, you've got corporate media, you've got the most powerful media institutions right across the entire world pushing a narrative. And then you have independent journalism, the likes of Al Jazeera, as you have alluded to as well. And here we see a completely different narrative. At the end of the day, this is about human beings. Behind every statistic, behind every journalist who has been killed or affected by this genocide is alive. There is a family. And this is the reason why you have actually issued the statement, and also a statement that is strong enough in its condemnation, Reggie.
Uh, I mean, if you look at the number of journalists that have been killed so far, they have left families behind. And these are journalists not only from Gaza, but from other parts of the world. And these are people who have left families, from widows to young children and so forth. So the statement had to take that position that if we are going to remain increasingly silent, then we are going to betray the very same principles that we always preach and we were established to talk about. So that's why the statement, that's why we will always reiterate to say what's happening on the ground is more dire. We'll always reiterate to say this will go on until how long? I mean, if you check the number of journalists that are killed so far, I think we are just over, 300? And the number keeps on increasing. You look at the civilians that were killed, a lot. So we cannot remain silent. We are hopeful that as the media fraternity, we will see the end of the light at the end of the day. We keep on seeing in the news where, I mean, this morning France will join, the call for a Palestinian statehood. Maybe that's what we need. We need more and more of these countries from the so-called global north, the so-called first world, to come in and speak out, to come in and say, this is not on. This is what we need to speak out about. That's exactly what we need. Our continued silence will only go in and betray the people of Palestine. Will only go in and betray the very same principles of freedom of expression, of the right to live for the people of Palestine. So that's what we need to speak about.
Reggie, just looking at it from a South African perspective, and let's look at media in South Africa, and particularly looking at mainstream media, because one of the statements in this release is obviously urging international media and human rights bodies to maintain relentless focus on Gaza and to act swiftly to prevent further loss of life. Looking at South Africa now, I know this is directed to international media, and we are also part of international media. Looking at South Africa, looking at it from a media perspective, the reporting on this genocide, is there that sense of urgency? Is there that relentless focus even in South Africa?
Yeah, well, man, it's a 50-50. The reality between me and you, we know that the story of Gaza and what's been happening there hasn't been covered as much as it should. In fact, when the first attacks happened in 2023, there was so much coverage, but that has dipped, that has gone down. So the focus has gone down. But as the focus goes down, and we only see tidbits there, like the recent film, the documentary film that won an Oscar, then you'll see the coverage, the spike in coverage. But other than that, on a daily, we don't see that happening, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, in South Africa, there is a presence of international media, and it does cover whatever issues it covers. I think, yes, it could be better, but we don't see that. We are in South Africa. In terms of our media outlets, it could be better, but yeah.
Well, certainly, and also I think it's actually quite sad because what's happened is when one looks at this genocide, each aspect of this genocide since it had started, has taken a different dimension, but it's taken to the next level, and each level appears to be more brutal than the previous one, and the latest that we are seeing in terms of the images coming through out of Gaza is once again we see this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation again, but again, people queuing up for food and then still being killed. So, it's humiliating in more ways than one. And the question again is, when is this actually going to stop? And this is what you are saying is, people need to speak out because your statement talks about free expression does not stop at borders. So at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility to speak out, Reggie.
Yes, no, absolutely. You have said it all there. We've got to speak out, and we need to continue speaking out, and we can't tire of speaking out.
Yes, Reggie, just looking at it from again
Is
from a
that the
South
last
African.
one? I need to jump off now.
I know. Or just finally,
Listen, yeah,
finally, finally, finally,
yeah.
Reggie. At the end of the day, your statement talks about we stand in solidarity with those in Gaza. We echo the urgent plea, and the world must act now. So I must say that it is a very, very powerful statement that SANEF has actually put out as well. We do appreciate you taking time out to discuss the statement with us, and hopefully looking forward to future engagements with yourself and the South African National Editors Forum. But for now, we thank you. Have yourself a wonderful day and a
Thank
great
you.
weekend ahead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity.
Reggie Moalusi with us this morning, right here on Assalam Media, and really a very thought-provoking statement that SANEF has actually put out, and it's just encouraging to see, SANEF putting up this statement, and again. It's about free expression. It is about digital ethics, and we've seen it over and over again and the complete refusal on the part of Israel has to allow independent journalists to go into Gaza and to report from the ground. That is highly questionable in itself, but also at the same time, it's also about a narrative and what Israel is trying to do through the mainstream media, through some of the corporate media, is to actually continue controlling the narrative and the rhetoric that is being repeated that this genocide was a direct result as what had taken place on the 7th of October 2023, which we know that many have debunked and it has been thrown out of the window because this is about an occupation that has been lasting for more than 76 years. With that, the time is just gone 8:30. We're going to go for a break and we come back. We're going to have a live crossover to Gaza this morning with Caroline Willeman, Doctors Without Borders, and we're talking about healthcare, about aid workers, and again, the starvation, the famine, the humanitarian aid, all of that will come under discussion as we link up with Caroline Willeman.